Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile on the Dragon deck within Rush Duel Links, specifically Dragonic Resonance. So this is a deck that's had a lot of ups and downs. Initially, the deck was fine. It was a good deck. It just wasn't really getting any big results. It wasn't like winning any events or anything, and that was because the boss monster we basically had to rely on for this deck is Dragonic Slayer. Dragonic Slayer is not a bad card. It's just with only 2300 attack, an effect that doesn't do anything a lot of the time, it does end up feeling a little bit lackluster. Now, Dragonic Slayer is actually quite good in some specific matchups, including the Mirror, but at the beginning of Rush Duel Links' lifespan, everyone had quite quickly realised that spells and traps weren't the way to go, so people just really weren't playing any, which meant Dragonic Slayer most of the time was just a 2300 vanilla. But first, let's go and take a look at the skill. So we have Dragonic Resonance. So this skill is pretty good. This is a good skill when compared to a lot of the other skills we have access to in Rush Duel Links. This skill can be used if the only monster in your deck are Dragon type. Now that's quite a harsh restriction. A lot of the other skills specifically say like you can't have 1400 or higher attackers outside of your type or 1500 or higher attackers. This is specifically limits you to only Dragon monsters, which means you can't use staples like Thunder the Thunder. Can be activated if you have a face-up Earth attribute effect monster with 1500 or more attack or 1300 or more defense on your field. So again, we need to be running Earth attribute effect dragon monsters. This turn, up to 2 face-up monsters with 2300 or less attack on your field gain 500 attack and their level is increased by 4. So importantly, this boost doesn't have to be given to Earth monsters, you just need to have at least one Earth monster on the field. Which does mean we can boost our non-Earth monsters that do quite well with the boost. Things like Twin Edge Dragon, which can attack twice. It is a light monster, so obviously not an Earth, but being able to attack twice with extra 500 boost can be very relevant. If we get 2 direct attacks, and that's an extra 1000 damage to the life, or just boosting it to 15 means it can guaranteed clear 2 set monsters that weren't tribute set, and then get in with our bigger monsters to try and get some damage in. Also means it can work with Winged Dragon guarding the Fortress and our Lesser Dragon, which although not ideal targets, will still allow them to get over that 1500 threshold and be able to punch through a lot of threats. Now, one thing the skill cannot be used with is Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, which is a bit of a shame, because if Dragius could also get this boost, a 3000 attacker that attacks twice is ridiculous, which is probably why we can't use it with this card. So let's talk about the combo of this deck. So this deck has one combo that it likes to pull off to try and close out games, and that is all centered around Dragonic Pressure. So Dragonic Pressure is a very interesting spell card. We can send 3 Dragon-type monsters from hand to grave, destroy all monsters on the field, then if you destroyed a monster by this effect, special summon a level 4 or lower Dragon monster from your graveyard to your field in face-up defense position. So our best target to bring back with this is always going to be either our Pitcher or our Slugger. If we can use Slugger or Pitcher's effect to bring back the other one, that now gives us 2 monsters to be used as tribute fodder to get out something big from our hand. So the idea is that we'll set Dragonic Pressure on a prior turn, then the following turn, draw 5 cards, flip over our Dragonic Pressure, discard 3, wipe the board, bring back Pitcher, use its effect to bring back Slugger, then we still have 2 cards left in hand, we tribute both our Pitcher and our Slugger to bring out one of our Earth monsters, so this would either be Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike or our Dragonic Slayer. Then we would normal summon our other card, ideally Dragorite, because it's going to be the highest attack monster that we can normal summon, but any of our others are also fine. Then we use our Dragonic Resonance skill to boost our monster's attack, so Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike would become a 28, and in an ideal world, Dragorite becomes a 2000. Then, because of our Dragonic Resonance skill increasing the levels, that means Dragorite will now be higher than level 6, which means it can attack this turn, even though we will have used Sports Dragon Pitcher or Slugger's effect, which prevent our level 6 and lower monsters from attacking. So if we combine that together, that'll be a 2000 attack Dragorite, plus a 2800 attack Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike, which means 4800 damage directly to your opponent because we've already wiped their field using our Dragonic Pressure. So it's a very, very strong combo, because as soon as you get your opponent down to 4800, they always have to be cautious that you could just kill them out of nowhere. So if we go through the card by card, we have Dragonic Slayer. So again, on release, people thought this card wasn't very good, but in the mirror, it is actually extremely important. That being because in order to get the full combo off, we need to set the Dragonic Pressure a turn before. So if our opponent sets their Dragonic Pressure and then we summon out our Dragonic Slayer and pop their face down Dragonic Pressure, we now set their combo back a turn, which is very, very important in the mirror, because that now means if we're a turn ahead of them, we can now kill them before they can kill us. This is also pretty good into things like Phantom Bind, because again, this deck is pure dragons, which means Phantom Bind will hurt this deck quite a lot. So Dragonic Slayer actually pretty good in here. Next up, 2 copies of Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius. So we've only gone with 2 because we need to include all of our high-level Earth Dragon monsters to get our skill off. So Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius kind of falls by the wayside a little bit, but that does make room for our Phoenix Dragon, which is also a limit 3. So we've decided to go with a 1-2 split here. Phoenix Dragon, very, very good because it can get access to our Dragonic Slayers, our Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike, Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, and our Gravity Press Dragon from the graveyard. So it lets us toolbox our graveyard to find exactly what we need. And Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius is always just going to be a fantastic card because being able to punch through your opponent's monsters and get to their life points is always going to be good. There's a reason this is the best card in the game. Next up, we have Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike. Now, this card really sorted out a lot of the problems this deck had. Initially, I didn't think Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike was going to be that impactful, but I was dead wrong. So we can send the top card of a deck to the graveyard during the turn you normal summon this card, draw a card equal to the number of monsters in your opponent's field, which a lot of the time will be 3. Then place cards from your hand equal to the number of cards drawn by this effect on either the top or bottom of your deck in any order. So this lets you either set up your hand for next turn, fix your bricked hand now, or just get rid of a load of cards you don't want by putting them to the bottom of the deck. So very, very versatile card, and because this is effectively a combo deck, we can use it to set up everything we need for the following turn. We can make sure that we're going to have a high-level Earth monster in our hand, for example. We can make sure we get the Sports Dragon Pitcher and Slugger into the graveyard. We can make sure we find the Dragonic Pressure so that we can set it and get our combo going even quicker. So very, very powerful card, and I personally underrated this card, but it is bonkers. Next up, we have Gravity Press Dragon. We're only on the 1 copy because we found that we were bricking a little bit on high-level monsters. So we've dropped our Gravity Press down to 1, but we can send 1 card from our hand to the graveyard. 1 face-up monster on your opponent's field loses 700 attack and defense to the end of this turn. Now, this is a very good effect. Sometimes you just need a way to either boost one of your own cards or weaken one of your opponents, and Gravity Press Dragon is a fantastic way to do that. Getting over a Yami Ruler is always going to be very impactful, or we could use it on our opponent's 2500 attack monster so that our Dragius can get in and kill it. It's a very, very good card. The only real downside to Gravity Press is that it does require a tribute because it's level 6, and that we have to discard a card from our hand, but in Rush, sometimes that actually ends up being a good thing, so it's not actually that bad. Next up, we have Triad Drago. So weak stats, which is a bit of a shame, but if our opponent has a face-up level 7 or higher monster, and we have 2 face-up non-level 3 Dragon-type monsters on a field, we can draw a card. So the biggest downside to this card is probably the fact that we have to have non-level 3, because a lot of our good dragons are level 3. Our multi-attacker is a level 3. One of our sports dragon cards is a level 3. And this can sometimes cause issues not letting you get that extra card. But getting the extra card can be very relevant for getting out, let's say, 2 tribute monsters in a turn. So Triad Drago is a very, very good piece of the deck, and we'd be playing 3 if we had, but currently it's limited to 2 because we can only get them as level up rewards from Luke. Next up, we have our Slugger and Pitcher combo. Again, fantastic cards, just helps us get out our tribute monsters and a main part of our combo using our Dragonic Resonance. They're always going to be a mainstay. Sometimes you'll have to wipe the board prematurely if your opponent has a board that you can't really out. You have to bring back a Slugger, use its effect to bring back a Pitcher, and just kind of sit on a bunch of defense monsters, which is not the greatest feeling in the world, but it is an option. And if your opponent does get out some sort of ridiculous board you can't break, chances are they won't be able to do it again, so outing it once is still better than nothing and just try to beat them down after that. We've already talked a little bit about Twin Edge Dragon, but having multi-attack is always going to be fantastic in Rush. Being able to clear monsters out the way so you can get to their life points is incredibly powerful, and Twin Edge Dragon, it is a level 3, so it does clash a little bit with our Triad Drago, but I do think it is worth it, especially if we can get our Dragonic Resonance on it, because then we can use our Twin Edge Dragon to clear out our opponent's monsters and then get to their life points with our big Piercing Strike and Dragonic Slayer. Next up, Winged Dragon Guardian of the Fortress. Again, 1400 attack, decent. It's level 4, so it's not level 3. Again, decent. Not really much more to say about it. It's the next best part of our combo than Dragorite, so that's something. And then finally, we have Lesser Dragon, who's just kind of filling space. It's a dragon monster, it can be normal summoned, it's not level 3, its attack and defense aren't great, but it's the next best one we have. So let's talk a little bit about matchups. So this deck is okay against pretty much everything. This deck doesn't really have a bad matchup, so much as some decks just kind of are stronger in general, I feel. Like Pure Spellcasters, the SAR build, is going to be doing what they want to do a little bit more often than the Dragonic Resonance Dragon deck is. Dragoncasters is maybe a bit of a 50-50. I'd say Dragoncasters kind of ekes out ever so slightly. But this deck can beat any other deck in the format, and specifically, this deck completely destroys the Yami Ruler Dark Arts of Celerity deck. Being able to wipe the board just completely shuts that deck down. Being able to use Gravity Press Dragon to weaken the Yami Ruler and just attack over it completely lets you ignore the lock most of the time. This deck is just a very competent deck at doing what it wants to do. Being able to use Piercing Dragon Bunker Strike to sort out any bricked hands, to try and find the pieces you need for your combo, and just try and blow your opponent out is always going to be very, very strong. And that is the reason why this is one of the strongest decks in the game, on top of the fact it is extremely free-to-play friendly. Realistically, you could swap out one Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius for a second copy of Phoenix Dragon, and the deck will play just as fine, in which case you will have had to go through the box one time to pick up one copy of Dragonic Slayer, one copy of Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius. You can get 2 Phoenix Dragon just from leveling up Luke. All of the Piercing Dragon Bunker Strikes can be claimed just by playing ranked games, and then everything else in here can be claimed from the box by going through once, including our super rare Dragonic Pressure, which again, there's 2 in the box, so just go and pick those 2 up. They're very, very free to play friendly. It's also quite easy to play. It's just kind of Unga Bunga, summon, click button, gain attack, swing in. And doing the combo is kind of the most complicated thing. But as long as you remember that you ideally want to be setting Dragonic Pressure one turn, and then flipping up on a future turn, that's kind of all you need to kind of master this deck. But let's fire in some replays so I can show you what I've been talking about.